People often say that Baki is a story without a plot, that this manga, it's just about a bunch of guys addicted to trenbolone and domestic violence, beating each other up in the most creative ways they can think of. But we Baki fans know that's not true. Baki has a good story. It's true that it's not extremely deep, and it gets straight to the point, but that doesn't make it. Or that the story is a complete mess. They can, in turn, be divided into two subgroups. Group 1, those who have only seen the Netflix anime, which only adapted a couple of intermediate arcs from the manga. That's why, as I've mentioned on other occasions, it seems like the Netflix anime assumes you already know the characters, because obviously you should know them, because of the lore. Of course, lately all of this is Netflix's fault for not explaining this point. And what about group number 2? Those would be the ones who seem to think that the sleepier an anime makes you, the better it is. If there aren't 723.435 episodes where the characters go on endless monologues about why they're super sad and depressed, the work is bad. To these people, before becoming anime fans, I'd recommend that they become fans of prescription sleeping pills, if what they have is insomnia. Now, speaking seriously and leaving the jokes aside, what joke? I think that out of all the characters in this work, by far the most well-developed and fleshed out is its protagonist, Baki. And you might be thinking, oh, the protagonist of the story is the one who had the most development in the series. Thank you very much, Captain, obviously. Go suck a bag of discs. Look, you might be right, but let me remind you that being the protagonist doesn't guarantee you'll be the most developed. Exactly. We have the case of One Piece, where Luffy doesn't evolve. Luffy evolves, but his changes are subtle. You don't seem to know much about One Piece. Yeah, we saw you. When a fan says subtle changes, it usually means more like minimal or unnoticeable changes. Anyway, other cases are, for example, Goku or even Naruto. All of them have better developed and more well-crafted characters within their works. In Baki, on the other hand, the main evolution was experienced by the protagonist, followed from a distance by his father, Yujiro Hanma, who also had an interesting development. Since I mentioned Yujiro, I want to clarify something about him. Some statements I've made about Yujiro and his role as a father have been misunderstood, especially after the video of Yujiro versus Jin Freaks. Highly recommended video. By the way, obviously Yujiro is a better father than Jin, because Gin literally went out to buy cigarettes and never came back. And it's also clear that Yujiro is crazy about Baki. But that's the problem. Yujiro is crazy. Yujiro is a toxic father because even though he loves Baki a lot, his ways of showing affection are not appropriate at all. I'm saying this because poor Mr. Gin, a YouTuber friend of mine, got a lot of backlash for saying that Yujiro is a bad father. In one of his videos, let's see, does Yujiro love his son? Yes, is Yujiro a better father than Gin? Yes, at least he loves him and is present in his life. Now then, is Yujiro a good father? Hell no. Nowadays, he's calmer and you could say he's an acceptable father. But at the beginning of Baki, not even close. Anyway, Baki, narratively speaking, seems like a damn monster to me. His approach is organic, sublime, and calculated. Baki went from being an aggressive teenager, difficult to deal with, lost in life and angry at the world, to being an adult or someone close to adulthood, which is radically different from how he was in the past. Baki nowadays is someone you honestly don't want to make angry, and not just because of his strength, but also because of his attitude. That loud and talkative personality of Baki is long gone, where he used to provoke his enemies and shout a lot and generally acted like an average troublemaker. Right now, Baki is someone completely calm and serene, but he gives off that tense calmness. It's not that he acts relaxed because he's peaceful and calm. He behaves that way because he knows perfectly well that with one punch, he could kill you 10 times before you hit the ground. But how did this happen? How did that kid, kind of like Naruto, but in the bully version from Rugby High School, end up like this, to become the imposing figure he is today? Imposing, but small. I'm going to briefly mention and comment on the most critical moments that Baki went through and that had the biggest influence on his development and evolution. Always, of course. From my personal point of view, the first noticeable change I felt in Baki was after his training in the mountains when he was 13 years old. I think that spending so much time in contact with nature and fighting against his own fears and demons made him, above all, develop a more positive and less combative attitude without constantly seeking physical confrontation with everyone, but only with those who would bring him closer to his father's level. Also, the monster of Yasha, that is, the giant macaque from the mountain, also taught Baki a valuable lesson that appearances can be deceiving, and that a fight can end with a happy ending and even a beautiful friendship. Afterwards, his mother tried to beat him up in public for not being able to reach Yujiro's level as quickly as she and he wanted, definitely proving that Baki's mother is a complete bayao. But in the manga, this was very different. Baki's mother died almost instantly, and Baki, due to the extremely strong shock, he had a hallucination episode where he thought his mother was alive and he was carrying her on his back to the hospital while talking with her. When? The fourth event would be what I affectionately call the family combo. The clandestine arena arc was my favorite during its development, by far. By the way, Baki discovered both real brotherly love with his stepbrother Jack and romantic love with his future girlfriend Kozue. By the way, for those who told me in Jack's video, "Nya Bielche," Jack isn't Baki's stepbrother, he's his half-brother. Don't you know about family Bielch? Look up the definition of stepbrother. A brother from only one parent. There you go, case closed. For Baki, falling in love and finding his long-lost brother who loved him brought him peace and calmed his heart. He went from having no one. Well, he had his brother without blood ties, Hanayama, but having a family member with blood ties who also seeks the same thing as him. And also to find love. Baki underwent a big change. The fifth one, which may sound like a joke, after all the hookups between him and Kozue in the convict saga, somehow Baki became overly confident in himself to the point of being irritating, though the details are unclear. It's likely a self-esteem boost, realizing you can go for 24 hours nonstop. What a stud, our little Baki. In the series, it's implied that after this, Baki went from being a boy to, quote-unquote, a man. And apparently that justifies his new attitude and his totally exaggerated power-up. I admit I'm not entirely satisfied with the justification for this change, but who are we kidding here? This fear will go down in history as the most bizarre in the entire field, by far, and that's pretty cool. The sixth major event in Baki's evolution was one of the most shocking for him, and I'm referring to the reunion between Baki and his father at the Raitai tournament in China, where Baki, to his extreme surprise, he realized that deep down he was happy to see Yujiro again. He began to suspect that he was starting to forgive him. He no longer felt that powerful, visceral, and bitter hatred toward his father. The flame was beginning to die out. As Baki matured, Baki's new personality was reflected in how he handled the whole Kozue incident. Ali Jr. is trying to steal Baki's girlfriend. Baki has bad luck with women considering his abusive mother and now his unfaithful girlfriend. Damn. Baki handled the situation with indifference, destroying Ali Jr. with a single punch, and going back to his own business without paying much attention to his girlfriend's erratic romantic moves. The sixth change came after the events of Son of Ogre. For me, one of the most critical points for Baki. Finally, after that epic fight against his father, they were able to bury the hatchet and put an end to that whole spectacle they had been preparing for years. Baki largely forgave his father. And nowadays, you could say they have a, let's call it, decent relationship. Baki forgives but doesn't forget. After all, they're not the type of father and son who hug often. Let's be real. Baki's personality remains quite consistent from this point forward. Has he become someone cold, dangerous, and fearsome? A true, pure-blooded Hanma, if you ask me. After all, we have indications that Yujiro's father, Yujiro Hanma, was actually a good guy. So being a bad person is more of a Yujiro thing than something from the Hanma bloodline itself, or so I believe. As the Baki manga continues, we'll see if he undergoes another significant transformation. Or will he stay the way he is until the end of the story? Which honestly wouldn't bother me. I think Baki has already been through enough, poor guy. I hope this video has cleared up any doubts about this character and made a few people think about him. I firmly believe that Baki is a really good character on every level, and it hurts me that he's been labeled as a simple character. By people who don't even know why Baki is the way he is, since they haven't even seen the whole work.